taking a field trip to conservative world today is taking a long, strange trip away from what a shutdown of the federal government means in the rest of the country. It is different there. And in some ways, it is literally different there. These are the 80 Republican members of the House who wrote to House Speaker John Boehner just over a month ago, demanding that Speaker Boehner shut down the federal government, demanding specifically that he make the funding of the federal government contingent on dismantling health reform. The letter was spearheaded by a freshman congressman from the most Republican district in North Carolina, and he got 80 signatures on that letter from himself and his Republican colleagues before he sent the letter to Speaker John Boehner demanding a shutdown. Of the 80 Republican members of Congress who signed this letter, 79 of the 80 are white, 76 of the 80 are male. Your average House district in America is 63% white. These guys' districts are 75% white. Overall, Latinos are 17% of the average House district, but for these guys' districts, it's less than 10%. You might recall that a man named Barack Obama won the last presidential election by millions of votes, but not in these guys' districts, not even close. Even as the president won overall and by a pretty large margin, in these guys' districts, President Obama lost by an average of 23 points. Republicans in the states have gerrymandered these districts so that they are essentially pure Republican. In order to get them that way and keep them that way, they have to keep making them whiter and whiter and whiter. If they could make them more male, I'm sure they would do that too. But white works for now. Lower education levels work. Fewer Latinos, fewer blacks, all of that is crucial, and they have to be rural. In order to create districts that safe for these guys, Republicans have had to create districts for themselves that are less and less diverse over time, even as the rest of the country gets more diverse. Ryan Lizza wrote this up this week for The New Yorker once it became clear that these 80 Republicans who signed this letter were getting exactly what they asked for. Crunching the numbers, he found, quote, these 80 Republican members represent an America where the population is getting whiter, where there are few major cities, where Obama lost the last election in a landslide, and where the Republican Party is becoming more dominant and more popular. Meanwhile, in the rest of the country, in our actual national politics, each of these trends is reversed. So the faction that is driving the government shutdown, that demanded it from John Boehner a month ago and now has it exactly on the terms they demanded, they represent, geographically, specific slivers of the country that were specifically shaped, specifically chosen, specifically designed to be very white, less educated, almost entirely rural, and as close as you can get to 100% Republican. None of those districts is competitive. From their perspective, from those districts, it is utterly rational for those specific members of Congress to want a government shutdown, sure. To want the most confrontational stance they can possibly take toward this president who is so unpopular in their districts. It is politically rational for those 80 members of Congress to want a shutdown. But why is it rational for the Republican Party to let those folks drive for the whole party and the whole country? Yes, there are 80 Republican members of the House, at least, whose narrowly drawn districts make a shutdown seem like good politics. They're never going to go home and listen to an angry town hall about why did you shut down the government? Why were you too confrontational with President Obama? The only anger they're ever going to hear is if they didn't go far enough. If someone wants to poll on secession from the country in those districts, I bet you'd find some eye-opening results there as well. It has always been the case that there is a minority of folks in the Congress whose interests are locally rational but extreme for the nation. The question is why that group is now setting policy for the whole party and therefore for the whole country. And what would you do right now if you were a Republican who did not agree with those folks in your own party? What would you do, even if you were a conservative? If you were a conservative in the Republican Party right now and you did not agree that there should be a shutdown, inside your party right now, inside the House, what would you do if the agenda that was being followed was the agenda of those 80 members of Congress who will never, ever, ever have to answer for shutting it down? What would you do if you didn't agree?